As more and more people are getting their hands on pre-release versions of Project Cars 3 and more details are being released about the game, the fans and the creators are as divided as ever over the latest iteration of SMS's premier racing title. That said, there are certainly both good and bad things that we've heard about the game since the first trailers dropped and it was announced that we would not be having pit stops in the game. So let's go over more of the goings-on that have been going on as of late. So obviously we've been seeing more and more gameplay from the game. The first lot of gameplay that we saw since the last video was the IndyCar gameplay at Laguna Seca and the 2019 Porsche 935 at Leipzig. If you saw this gameplay alone, it would all look very familiar to you as a Project Cars player, and it actually looks really good. But of course, every single time you pass the start-finish straight, or past the pit lane, you will notice that there is a great big barrier covering the entrance, and that is certainly a shame. Now, this isn't the only gameplay we've seen so far. More and more of it is surfacing on YouTube because more and more YouTubers have been given early access to the game. Now, for the record, I don't have early access, but I'll try and find some footage for you to see throughout the course of this video. Now, the footage itself does look really good, and it looks like a really polished racing game. However, I'm hearing that the car classes are a lot broader like they are in Forza Motorsport, and the GTA class, for example, which I'm assuming is one of these new, incredibly broad classes, there's been reports of players being in races with GTE, GT3, GT4, and even some touring cars, all on the same track and racing for overall position, which is different from Project Cars 2 because we had the class system. Now, I hope that isn't the case, and I hope the classes end up being more narrowed down. I just prefer it to be that way, but that might end up being the case. I think the class divisions is probably because they'll be divided based on a system similar to Forza's PI system, but I really hope that isn't the case, as I did really enjoy proper multi-class racing in Project Cars 2. Now, because more and more YouTubers have early access to the game, it means that some of them have looked through the car and track list. One of these YouTubers was Chris Hay, who I hadn't previously heard of until I saw his video on Project Cars 3. And he posted what he described as a reasonably accurate car list in his video covering the game, which has since been removed for reasons that haven't been made entirely clear. So here is the list that Chris Hay put together. Well, it certainly isn't a bad car list. Most of the cars are coming over from Project Cars 2. There's some new GT cars such as the McLaren 720S GT3, the 570 GT4, the Chevrolet Camaro GT4, the new Aston Martin Vantage GTE, the new Toyota Supra GT4, and a few other cars as well are new to the game, along with all the cars that were in the previous game. There are some new touring cars, such as, I think, the Honda Civic TCR or BTCC car. It just says Honda Civic Racing, which that's pretty vague, so I'm not entirely sure what that actually is. There's obviously the new Indy cars, which we discussed in a previous video and also earlier on in this video. There's also super trucks, which should be lively. But I think what is most notable among the new cars is the addition of Formula E cars. Now, that's all well and good, but it's kind of pointless, as you'll see in a second when we get on to the track list. But hey, it's still a really cool addition. There's also a lot of road cars, which, I mean, take that as you will. But personally, I would have preferred to see more race cars added to the game, which I feel like it's sort of lacking in this department. And there haven't really been a great deal of updates either. With the supercars, for example, it's still the same FG Ford Falcon that we had in Project Cars 1. Also with the NASCAR, it's just the same Ford Fusion stock car, and then some of the GT3 cars haven't been updated to the latest specs, so there's not really been too many updates here, and I think that's a bit of a shame. Ultimately, the car list is pretty good, but the track list is very underwhelming. Not only are there only 2 new IRL racetracks that have been added to the game, along with all the fictional ones, but we have also lost Circuit of the Americas, Spa, and Le Mans. Okay, COTA isn't that big of a loss, but Spa and Le Mans? Do I even need to go into why that sucks? I mean, while we're not entirely sure why we lost Le Mans, the licensing costs for Spa were apparently high enough for SMS to drop it. But really? We have all these endurance racing cars in the game, and yet we don't have two of the quintessential endurance racing tracks. I mean, come on, are you serious? The new tracks are Jerez and Leipzig, along with all the fictional street circuits. That will most likely be forgotten about. Now take this with a grain of salt because, as I said before, this is a list that Chris Hayes put together, and he said it's a reasonably accurate car and track list. It might not entirely be accurate, but then again, it is coming from somebody who has probably had a look through all the cars and the tracks in the game, so I don't really like the look of this. Now, on the plus side, the controller experience has reportedly been completely overhauled, with early reports pointing to a massive improvement, while the wheel experience that was already good in Project Cars 2 has been left more or less the same. Obviously, the controller was something that was very much lacking in the second game, and a lot of fans complained about that, so it's good to see that's properly been rectified. Now, with this new information and the information that we've received thus far in the gameplay that we've seen and what we've also heard about the career mode and how that'll work, what do I think? Well, do I think it'll be a good racing game? Yes. Do I think it'll be a good sim racer? No. If this game was called Need for Speed Shift 3, there would be no issues at all. But because it's a Project Cars game, it's a very different story because we've come to expect a certain type of game from this franchise. And I think whatever SMS pump out with the third game will always be compared to the first two. I think the game does have some really good content, but again, it's missing key features such as pit stops, fuel and tire wear, which I won't go into detail of because I've already done that in previous videos. And we're also not entirely clear on how the damage model is going to work because the devs have actually refused to answer various people's questions in regards to that. I'm also hearing that practice sessions have been removed, so the whole idea of a race weekend where you come into practice, you move on to qualifying and you do the race, have been removed. So that kind of sucks. Also, there's gonna be no private lobbies at launch, which also kind of sucks. And it's clear what direction Project Cars is going in, and well, I don't really think it's for me, to be honest. But if you guys like the Project Cars 3 content I'm making, then I will continue to make it, and then I'll probably get the game and make more content on the game, and then, you know, you can sort of decide for yourself. So if you want me to keep doing that, put that in the comments below. And who knows, maybe I might even end up actually liking it in a Forza Horizon-y kind of way. The type of racing that I wouldn't mind partaking in when I just want to drive brain dead for a couple of hours. Now, there are a couple of thorns in SMS's side right now, and of course, there are the hordes of angry fans on the Discord and server and on social media that staff are constantly having to deal with. And there is also Forza Motorsport. Microsoft recently dropped the teaser trailer for the latest installment into the franchise, this time also dropping the numbers off the end of the title, so the game is simply going to be called Forza Motorsport. And the game is set to be released on the next-gen console. Now, not only has this game been in development for years, which means it'll probably be a very polished racing title, as I said, it'll also be released on the next-gen console, which of course will give it technical capabilities that the games made on today's consoles simply won't have. This could be very bad news for SMS, as the Forza franchise are now finally playing their hand, and it appears to be a very good one. Because this video is about Project Cars 3, I won't go massively into detail, but it seems to be a very race car focused game, at least from the trailer. And if they go down more the sim path and fix up the wheel gameplay, which was something that was quite lacking on Forza 7, it might actually fill the gap in the market that was previously occupied by Project Cars, and also keeping on sort of the more casual racing fans, which the Forza franchise has done very well to do. Now, the Project Cars market that I am referring to is essentially a good sim on console with an extensive car and track list. Not to mention that Assetto Corsa Competizione, which I actually bought recently, has also come into the fray and is probably the most realistic sim racing experience that you can get on console. Anyway, what do you think? Put all your thoughts in the comments below. I do actually read them all, so you may as well say something and I'll most likely respond to you. All the socials are in the description below, including the TCR Instagram, Twitter, and Discord server, as well as my own personal Twitter. Please go check those links out if you haven't already done so. Anyway, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.